Hello everyone, Phil here, and welcome to my review of The Last of Us television series, episode 6. Now before we start tonight, I have a couple quick things to say. I've been reading comments and criticisms on this series of videos that I've been putting out on the channel, and some of them, quite frankly, I find quite hilarious. If you can believe it, there's actually some people who've actually said you should label your review as spoilers. I should label my review of a television show as spoilers. How do you review a TV show or a movie without addressing plot points that you're criticizing? That's a new one for me. I've never heard of that before. That I need to tell you that there are spoilers in this review. Yes, I'm going to actually talk about this show, so I'm going to reveal things about the show in the review. That'd be like saying a game review is spoilers. Yeah, no shit. Right? I mean, I don't really know what else to say about that. In addition, I saw another criticism saying, all you're doing is talking about the plot of the show. That's not a review. Well, if literally all I did was a recap and I didn't give you my opinion, that's true. But I'm pretty sure that in all these videos, I've given you my opinion on the episodes that I'm addressing. So that's also false. But anyway, I digress. You know, I'm glad that for those of you who are enjoying this series that you are. This is actually the first episode I'm reviewing only 24 hours since it was released over on HBO Max. I watched it last night with my wife. And I'll be honest with you guys. Out of all the episodes that I've watched of The Last of Us TV show so far, I think I'm about to be the most critical about episode 6. You want to know why? Because now, for the first time ever, I really feel I have a major problem with the pacing of the show. All right? Allow me to explain. All right? For those of you who've played The Last of Us video game, I think you're going to understand this a lot more. This episode, which is under 50 minutes long, features Joel and Ellie's trek across the country from when they were interacting with Henry and Sam in the last episode to actually running into the community of survivors that Joel's brother Tommy is now living with. It's all of that interaction of them meeting them, discussing the future, Joel, having this character development with his brother about how he's very afraid of losing Ellie just like he lost his own daughter. He doesn't feel like he's a good guardian for her. Discussing that she is the only person immune to the virus, and therefore they need to get her to these fireflies, possibly, further west. They're not sure exactly where yet. All that interaction that happens with those settlers, all right? It also features their trek to the college university. I believe it's University of Colorado, where then they discover evidence of the fireflies and where the fireflies actually are, and the cliffhanger ending that happens after that. Okay, that's in 50 minutes. Now, if you played the game, you might say, wait a minute. In that time frame of the game, there's a lot of stuff that happens. There's a ton of combat that happens where these two are working together and surviving to even get to Tommy's settlement. Once they get to Tommy's settlement, they're not at the settlement, they're at a dam. And at that dam where they're interacting with all the survivors, they kind of learn more about them and how these survivors are very military-esque. They have all these kind of military roles and ranks, and they're very strict, and it seems like that's how they've managed to survive for that long. They're not loose. They're basically very, it's basically a commune society, but at the same time, they all establish these important roles that they need to follow, and perhaps there might be even some dissension in the ranks there that people think it's too strict or whatever. But if you remember, in the midst of Joel explaining to Tommy what's going on with Ellie and all of that, and that his own, feelings of possibly not being good enough to be a dad figure to Ellie, and that he's going to basically end up having to, she's going to get killed because of him, basically. And he even has nightmares about it. And then he's having this conversation with Tommy, and he even talks to Tommy about he wants to leave Ellie behind and that Tommy should take her to the fireflies because Tommy knows better. Maybe Tommy even knows where the fireflies are better than him. And Tommy agrees to do it. But what ends up happening in the game is that Ellie overhears this conversation. She gets incredibly upset. She runs away from Tommy and Joel. She steals a horse and rides away. Joel and Tommy have to go after her to try to find her. They fight, they have to fight a bunch of people in the meantime to get to her. When they finally get to her, she's inside of a house. She's reading a diary of a teenage girl. And that's where the scene happens, where basically she's like, wow, teenage girls had a way different life before this pandemic happened with the cordyceps. Look, this girl is talking about how she looks, her weight, boys. That's something that none of us can worry about anymore. And she was like laughing at it. Is this how they all were? That's kind of pathetic and embarrassing, right? It's an interesting discussion because what it lets you feel is that Ellie is not that kind of person. She's a survivalist. She was trained to be a survivalist. She's grown up in a world where she has to be a survivalist, and that's why she's different than the girl she's reading in the diary. Well, eventually Joel has the conversation with Ellie. Ellie reveals she's incredibly upset that Joel's going to abandon her because everyone in her life that she ever loved or cared about either died or abandoned her. And therefore, that's why when Joel said to Tommy, oh, I might have to dump her with you, you take her to the Fireflies, that's what hurt her so much, okay? This is a whole different a way that it plays out in the game than it does in the show, all right? Then they go back to the dam, but the dam gets attacked. They have this big gameplay segment of them surviving at the dam. Eventually, Joel decides, no, I'm going to take Ellie to the Fireflies. They end up arriving at the university. When they arrive at the university, there's an insane amount of exploration and gameplay. They're trying to figure out what happened. There's infected monkeys. There's a whole plot line where you believe maybe it's infected monkeys that actually spread the cordyceps virus to humans to begin with. They have to fight a series of infected. In addition to that, these bandit/looter raiders show up, and then they have to fight them and survive against them. And basically, there's a giant segment, like tons of gameplay, all right, that then ends with the cliffhanger ending, which I won't reveal yet because I don't want to talk about it until we talk about it on the show. Basically, in summary, this episode 6, covers literally about 10 or more hours of gameplay of the Last of Us video game, all right? What's different in the show than the game? Well, they don't actually go to the dam. They go, they get intercepted by the survivors that Tommy's a part of, and they get taken to the actual settlement town of these people living, the commune, that actually is a major part of the plot of The Last of Us 2. So you see it early. You see it in the season 1 of this show, when if this were going by the game, it wouldn't be till season 2. You get to see how a lot of the town is set up, and it's a commune, which again, this is season 2 content, really. But they do it early. And distinct changes yet again that I think it's Neil Druckmann trying to make changes to the series to make it his own. For example, Tommy is married to the leader of this settlement, the commune. Her name is Maria, I believe. But in this one, she's African American. In the original game, she was white. Does it really matter? No. But it's definitely a distinct difference that he made. Much like how in episode 1, Joel's daughter was biracial. Well, now Tommy has an African American wife. What was the need to change that? Does it really have any impact on anything? No, but it's another distinct change that they made, okay? That whole scene where Ellie overhears Joel trying to ditch her, basically, with Tommy, happens, but not the way. She doesn't run away. Instead, she's actually just in the room that they gave her at the commune. Because, again, they're at the commune, so they have places to stay. As opposed to if they're at the dam, they wouldn't have anywhere to stay. It made sense for her to run away from the dam to have this private time because there was nowhere to be private at the dam, right? So it's a little different. It really is. It's so odd that the way that they did it is they changed the order of events from how it took place in The Last of Us 1 versus Last of Us 2 and almost combined the two. Did it distinctly change much? No. It didn't, all right? The distinct changes to episode 6 that I don't like is literally there's almost no conflict. There's almost no survival situations. In fact, there's no infected in this episode, to my knowledge. And maybe one of you will point out and say, no, Phil, you're wrong. I don't think there was a single infected in this episode. So let me get this straight. They went from being with Henry and Sam locked down in that city. They went halfway across the freaking country, all right, to where these people were, never encountered an infected, or it wasn't important enough to mention, right? They get in cahoots with Tommy and the commune people, right? Then they have their little development there. Joel, being back with Tommy, and Joel deciding that he doesn't want to be with Ellie, but then decides, no, I'm going to do it. She was right all along. It's more important for him to defend her or whatever. He's the man to do it. And then they go off on their journey, and then they get all the way to the college. Still no conflict, okay? In the video game, at the college, there's tons of conflict. There's infected. There's this raiders. In the show, this is so completely changed, all right? They arrive at the university. They're walking around making jokes and, talking about university and how it used to be. They literally get through the entire thing. There's no infected. They even there's monkeys. The infected monkeys are there, but they don't ever threaten them or nothing. They just see the monkeys are scared, they run away. And all that happens is they literally go right to the medical room where you can see the Fireflies are doing research, and then you see a big board that proves where the Fireflies are. I think they're in Salt Lake City now, Utah. Oh, that's where we need to go. That's where the Fireflies are, Salt Lake City. All that happens within like 5 minutes. And then they go outside, and then all of a sudden, yes, some raiders arrive. It's a group of 4. One of them gets the drop on Joel. Joel fights the guy, all right, kills him. And basically then they realize Joel got stabbed. Oh, shit. And now the cliffhanger ending of the episode is that Joel and Ellie are riding on the horse away, and Joel passes out from blood loss. And that's the end of the episode. That's the cliffhanger ending. Now, if you remember the game, in the game, they were fighting infected. They were fighting a ton of these raiders. And then what happens is Joel actually falls off a balcony and gets impaled by a giant metal rod. And that's way more of an impact than, I just got stabbed by like a baseball bat handle or something, which is what happens in the show. Same cliffhanger kind of ending though, all right? Now, if you played the game, you know what comes next. I won't spoil for those who haven't played the game. But here's really where I criticize the show. Was the writing bad? No. The writing was almost identical to the game, except it was massively accelerated. And when you're going to tell me they traveled across the country and they weren't encountering any infected, what is that? Like, you cut off a whole aspect. I mean, here's the thing. We were all wondering when they were going to take a video game and adapt it to a TV show, what was going to be the major changes, because there's no gameplay, right? But that gameplay was critical to the development of the relationship between Joel and Ellie, showing how they start to trust each other. They're survivalists now. Ellie's saving his life, he's saving hers. They're becoming more versatile. They're learning more about the infected as they encounter new ones and go across the country. That whole segment in the university is key to the plot because it shows Ellie developing more to be more of an adult and actually becoming the daughter of Joel, while Joel's becoming more of a defensive father figure to her. It's the first time I think Joel really realizes that. And the conflict is integral to character development. Here, it's like 50 minutes, plot point, 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 oops, Joel stabbed, end of episode. It's way too fast-paced. It skips too much. And because of that, this feels, to me, like the weakest episode, even though arguably it may be the most plot-heavy episode. This, by far, should have been at least 2 episodes. 1 episode where they go and meet the survivors, the commune, and another episode where they go to the university. There was no reason to have this be 1 episode and this rushed and to cut out that much experience of these people. Now it feels like the relationship is massively rushed. It doesn't make sense. Again, why are we so afraid of infected if they barely show up in this show, right? I mean, episode 1 had them, right? Episode 2 had some. Episode 3 had none. Episode 4 had none. Episode 5 had a lot. Episode 6 had none. Is this The Last of Us? What game is this? I.e., what show is this? It's like, I don't even feel like the infected really are that much of a threat in the show. And when they show up, oh my God, now they're a giant threat. Well, where were they? It's weird. It's very weird to me. And again, like, it's not that I did dislike the episode. I like the acting. I like the cinematography. I even said to my wife, I know why they ended up in the commune early, because they know there's a season 2 coming. And if you remember, in The Last of Us 2, the commune is a major part of the beginning of the game. So why not build it now and have dual use of it? Why have to film at a dam for the first season and then go to the commune for season 2 when you could just do all the exact same plot points at the commune and save money? And that's exactly what they did. They're going to reuse that set for sure when they do The Last of Us 2 next season. So I get those kind of changes. But the fact that they've cut out so much experience, there's no one that they're really afraid of. Why would they be? No one's showing up. We watched 50 minutes for any kind of a threat to merge its head in this episode. That's ridiculous. This is supposed to be the apocalypse. Where the hell are all the threats? It actually pissed me off, and I think this is actually the weakest episode when it comes to horror or survival. It becomes a plot dump episode, which is okay, but honestly, it's kind of boring. It is. Just doing it this way, as opposed to where when you had the game, you had those action sequences to break it up, and you had all this interesting threat coming from here or here. That kept it fast-paced. That kept it moving. That kept it balanced. This is like 50 minutes of plot, 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 plot. Oh, look, cliffhanger ending out of nowhere. That's not good writing. And it didn't work for me. Maybe you'll completely disagree. I think this episode is one of the weakest of the entire season so far because the pacing is terrible. It's too fast-paced. It doesn't make sense. It cuts out pivotal moments that are important to the development of the characters, and the changes don't make sense either. Again, why do we keep changing the race of characters? How does that add anything to the show? It doesn't. It literally does nothing. So what's the point? All right, guys. That's my review of Last of Us Episode 6. Plot dump. It is entertaining, but it's way too fast-paced, and I have issue with it. I think that this is actually one of the weaker episodes because of the way they did it. Now, there's rumors Episode 7 is actually going to go to the DLC Left Behind. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. If you're looking at the timeline of the actual game, next should be the David segment. So I guess we'll see what happens because there's 3 episodes left. This is a 9-episode series, correct? So next week, I'll watch the episode. I'll let you know what I think, whatever it ends up being. Thank you for watching. Please, if you enjoy this React series, please give the video a like, leave comments, let me know what you think. Consider becoming a member here. It helps a ton. Thank you all. See you next week.